Enclaved within the sprawl of urban development, Central Park remains a public emblem of nature's persistent presence, a veritable oasis of landlocked beauty. However, in spite of this publicly ingrained status, Central Park was, in fact, a construct of artificial conception. Every aspect of the park was designed, sculpted, and molded by man alone. Emerging from a municipal desire to replicate the overseas successes of Hyde Park and Bois de Boulogne, the state-appointed Central Park Commission purchased a 778-acre plot of marshy, rocky, and sheep-infested land, conditions typically non-conducive for major construction. To ameliorate both the unfavorable natural conditions of the park, as well as the pressing lack of park infrastructure, the Central Park Commission recruited the assistance of aspiring architects Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, and immediately began the process of environmental reconstruction.
Park commissioners had held a contest for the park's design, which Olmsted and Vaux won with the greensward plan. The architects envisioned a utopian green space that would provide residents of New York with a natural retreat within the city. However, before this idea was achieved, significant work had to be done on the existing land. Planners had to evict the 1,600 residents of Seneca Village, a settlement of free African Americans and Irish immigrants, then completely reconfigure the original landscape. Construction, which lasted from 1857 to 1873, disturbed the peaceful habitat of the park, creating an environment that more closely resembled the city itself. Reconstructing the soundscape of Central Park between 1859 and 1860 during the peak of construction helps us understand just how urban the park became while under construction. For the next few minutes, we will take you on an auditory tour of Central Park under construction. Central Park's irregular topography required extensive remodeling in order to fulfill Olmsted and Vaux's ideal of a gently rolling pastoral landscape. As part of the process, workers had to blast apart large boulders and bedrock formations using gunpowder. Over the course of construction, more gunpowder was used for these explosions than in the Battle of Gettysburg. 5 workers were killed from the blasts, a surprisingly small number given the frequency of explosions. Rock removed from the ground was sent to stone cutters to be crushed for paving stone or put to other use. To begin with, workers crushed stone by hand using sledgehammers. However, in 1860, a new stone-breaking machine that saved both time and money was introduced. In other areas of the park, workers lay the crushed stone for the paths and drives. Planners expected significant carriage traffic in the park once construction was completed and needed to pave the drives in such a way that they would not be easily degraded. Overseers came up with a special composition of 4 layers of progressively smaller stones compressed by a horse-drawn cylinder.
A park is nothing without a proliferant abundance of greenery. With this in mind, Olmsted and Vaux drew up plans for widespread urbanization. Droves of steam-powered engines scrambled across the park, transplanting several thousands of trees. Gardeners, trowel in hand, began the arduous process of digging and planting, eventually supplementing the arboreal presence with a verdant expanse of fluorescent growths and other herbaceous plantings.
The rocky, boggy ground of the park would not provide sufficient nourishment for the 300,000 plantings Olmsted and Vaux had included in their design, so additional soil had to be brought in. The parade ground alone required 2 feet of topsoil on top of its original surface. Overall, 3 million cubic yards of topsoil were imported into the park, all transported by horse-drawn carts. Thus, during construction, there would have been a constant rumble of cart traffic throughout the park.
Perhaps the most important component of the Olmsted-Vaux venture, the dredging and reconstitution of Central Park's extensive swampland, was a particularly difficult obstacle to overcome. Prior to marshland removal, swarms of swamp-borne mosquitoes had cut through workers with malaria and other contemporarily endemic arboviral fevers. While attributed to the odorous miasmas escaping the bog, planters were nonetheless presented with a solid initiative to remove the swamp. Furthermore, the wet soil of the marshlands provide insufficient nutrients for the continued sustainment of botanical life, and, more importantly, it was kind of annoying to visitors. Preliminary removal of marshy underbrush by grubbers preceded drainage efforts. Channels were then dug out, thus unclogging numerous pools and streams. Piping was fitted in particularly mired tracts as a means of drawing out bog-based moisture. Finally, water was then redirected and reused in the entirely artificial formation of the park's lakes and ponds.
While Olmsted oversaw the overall construction of Central Park, Calvert Vaux designed most of the man-made structures. In accordance with the vision of a natural sanctuary within the city, the greensward plan included few built structures. However, in addition to Belvedere Castle, Bethesda Terrace, and a few other buildings, Vaux also designed the many bridges and arches of the park. Many artisans worked on these formations, carving and placing stone, welding iron, and setting bricks. Carts carrying materials for the structures constantly rattled in and out of the construction zones, which would have been filled with the clinks and thuds of stone and metal. Although the bridges meshed well with the natural aesthetic of the park after they were completed, during their construction the area around them would have sounded more like a construction zone in the city.
Central Park represents man's perceived concept of nature, a pristine landscape unmarked by visible flaws. This narrow view, however, is not compatible with reality. Nature is not without flaw, and certainly not without beauty in the presence of said flaws. In pursuing this ideal concept, mankind mars and manipulates their natural environment, forming the world as they see fit, rather than accepting it as it is. While the finished park conceals itself under a facade of greenery and water, its fabrication exudes cacophonous artificiality, having required the catastrophic reconstruction of a natural marsh to a more anthropocentrically pleasing environment.